guys, welcome to a new video, and today is the third episode already from a 4-part series that I'm doing about my trip to Africa, which I did in August 2020 until January 2021. The previous two videos were about Tanzania mainland and Zanzibar, and this video will be about South Africa, and in the next video I will talk about Namibia, because that's the order what I did when I went traveling there by myself for 5 months in total. And in South Africa I stayed for about 3 months, I think. A little bit less, because your visa is only valid for 3 months. So I was there a long time. So this video is going to be quick. I'm going through every place pretty quick, just where I was, what I've done, and then to the next place already. But everything is written down in the description, where I was and which place and all of that stuff. So let's start with the video of me going to South Africa.
Lady, go!
We need to go back a little bit because I was in Zanzibar before and I met a girl there and we decided to travel together to South Africa. So from Zanzibar we booked a flight to Johannesburg. We were like, let's go to Johannesburg and see whatever we're going to do there. Very flexible. And in Johannesburg we stayed at Curiocity, and it's a really cool and hip and modern hostel in Johannesburg, in kind of a very urban and cool street. When people think about Johannesburg, it's not the safest place to be. So like, we did go out by ourselves sometimes during the day, but always mostly the two of us. Or we did like a tour with the hostel, or we went out with local people, but never really by ourselves and never really taking our phones out and all of that stuff. So we stayed there for a couple of nights, but we booked with the hostel itself, and we partied every night because there's a huge party culture in Johannesburg, and I was so excited because it was such a cool atmosphere there. I thought it was going to be super dangerous, but all of the like hip and trendy people go to Johannesburg from South Africa. So it was really, really nice, and we were just chilling and dancing, and yeah, it was fun. And then me and my friend decided to go to Hazyview. And Hazyview is a little bit above Johannesburg if you look at map-wise. And there we stayed at Hazyview Adventures Backpackers. And we got there by public transport, so we took a bus from Johannesburg to... I don't really remember the place anymore. And then we took another bus from that place to Hazyview. And the bus driver was so sweet that he dropped us off just on the side of the road, because else we had to walk a long time on the road. So that was perfect.
We're here! Out in the nowhere!
We got our little hut there. We booked a dorm, but we got a really cute cabin. So that was really nice. And Hazyview is very close to... hoe heet dat ook alweer? Kruger National Park, one of the most famous national parks of South Africa. One of the guests took us with them the first day, and the next day actually the girl who was working at the hostel, she took us with her for a day, and her boyfriend, so that was really sweet. And then we did also kind of we went quad driving one day, and we went tubing one day with also jumping off waterfalls and cliffs, so that was really fun. So here I'm jumping off a cliff. Me tubing, really funny face. Me a little bit happier tubing. This was the safari, an elephant, me jumping off something else. And the owner of the hostel also took us out on a day trip, and this is the Blyde River Canyon, which is, oh my god, look at this, beautiful. And he also showed the potholes and other stuff, a lot of stuff, and me jumping off something else. And from there I decided to go to Pretoria, and my friend decided to go back to Johannesburg. And in Pretoria I stayed for like 2 nights at Pumbas Backpackers. I wouldn't really recommend Pretoria, but I went there because I met a family and they invited me over to their houses. So that was actually the only reason why I went to Pretoria. Pretoria, for me at least, was not really worth visiting. The hostel was nice though. And then I met up with my friend again in Johannesburg because we wanted to attend a party that someone was giving that we met before. So we stayed in Johannesburg at Curiocity again for a few nights, and we went to the party and that was fun. And then we both split our ways up because I decided that I wanted to go to a Workaway, so a volunteering position in South Africa. I found out a very cool place named Kruger in the middle of the Drakensberg area. It was The village was called Underberg. It was a lodge / a horse farm, and it was not really easy to get there by public transport, but I managed to do it mostly. They also picked me up when I was almost there. They also have dorms, but also houses that they rent out to guests. But it's not really very easy to get by public transport. So if you have a car, it's really a place worth visiting. But if you don't have a car, maybe you can visit a better place. So I wrote them and I could join them for a month. So I went there and I started doing a workaway regarding horses and guests and a lodge and cooking and making breakfast and taking people out on, like, showing them the horses and gardening, all kinds of different stuff. And here is some footage of my time there. Yeah, so this is one of the horses, and here we were chilling, looking at the sunset with all of the animals, and we did some gardening. This was another volunteer, more gardening, and also just taking vegetables and cooking for the guests, and also sometimes go on horse rides ourselves. And another part was entertaining the guests and making sure the horses were okay. Yeah, as you can see, it was firstly such a beautiful environment with a lot of animals, with amazing other volunteers and employers. And I had really such a good time there, so that was so nice. And then with a friend that I met there, she decided to go home, and there was an airport in Durban, and I wanted to go to Coffee Bay, to the Wild Coast. So I needed to get to Durban as well, and then from there decide what my next plan was going to be. So I joined her after a month, or a little bit longer than a month of working there, to Durban, and I stayed in Smith's cottage. It was kind of, I don't know. I only stayed one night in Durban, and that one night I went partying with friends that I met before. Durban, for me, it was not super interesting, but yeah, it was just nice from there to get to the Wild Coast. So then, actually, I met a girl in that hostel that night, and she also was going to Coffee Bay. And I needed to go to Coffee Bay, and I didn't know how to get there, so because it's a long drive. So then we went together to Coffee Bay because she rented a car. And in Coffee Bay we both stayed at Coffee Shack Backpackers and Surf School. And I can definitely 100% recommend this one because it's such a cool atmosphere and you can learn how to surf for really cheap. What do you think? And they do a lot of other excursions like these. Also for a really cheap price, and it was just a really cool atmosphere, and I stayed I think for 4 or 5 nights there. And then I was still not really sure what my next plan was going to be. So there I met 2 other girls and they were going to Mdumbi. That's really close to Coffee Bay. So I decided to join them to Mdumbi for 1 night. And there we stayed at Vulcani Backpackers, and it had such a beautiful view, oh my god, of the whole coast. And the Wild Coast is really not as touristy as the garden route. So if you have a lot of time, then the Wild Coast is 100% worth visiting, because everything is not man-made still. It's still really rough, and you can really see the culture, the African culture still there. So if you're only going to South Africa, actually you really should visit the Wild Coast, because then you really get a sense of real Africa instead of the garden route, which has been really developed and stuff. So there it was really beautiful, and we did a hike with the 2 friends that I met and enjoying drinking milkshakes, I think. And then the next day we split our ways again, but they were heading to Drakensberg, where I just came from, and I wanted to go to Jeffreys Bay. But it was kind of the same way back, and then they went up and I went to the other side. So they dropped me off at a place where I knew I could get a bus. So they also have big touring buses when I was there. And that took me straight to Jeffreys Bay. And in Jeffreys Bay I stayed at Island Vibe, Jeffreys Bay, and that was a little bit outside of the center. You could easily walk to the center, so that was no problem. And it was right on the beach, and you could lay in hammocks again and then look at the beach, or go even in the sea, of course. And Jeffreys Bay, it's really trendy with a lot of surfers. It's apparently the place to surf. I found out at Coffee Bay that surfing was not really my thing, so I didn't surf in Jeffreys Bay, but I did enjoy the nice little cafes there, really modern and trendy, and also I got my piercing there, so that was also cool. And what else did I do there? I don't know. I think I just really walked around a little bit. And from Jeffreys Bay, I went to Stormsriver, and people recommended me Stormsriver. Apparently it's really beautiful there, so I was like, okay, I will go to Stormsriver, because yeah, I didn't really have a plan. So I was like, okay, let's go there. And I went to Djembe Backpackers, and it really looked rough and artistic on the pictures. But when I came there, I had a really intense experience. The story is a little bit too long to explain here in this video, but shortly, it was like a girl who was volunteering there, and nothing really was good arranged for her, so I felt really sorry, and I bought a lot of groceries for her because she didn't have any money and she didn't have any food, and I was the only one there, and it didn't have gates, and it was really as if I was in a ghost hotel. It was really intense. But I'm also happy that I went there, because then I met her, and I think we had a good connection, and I think it was important for me to go there, but it was kind of a weird situation. And also the owner agreed to pick me up somewhere, and he didn't pick me up, so I was waiting for like 2 hours. I didn't know how to get back, and yeah, it was just a weird experience. So I wouldn't recommend Djembe Backpackers necessarily, but if you go to Stormsriver, yeah, you can go to Stormsriver, but maybe another one, or look at the pictures and see, maybe you think it's cool. It's an experience for sure. And then from Stormsriver I went to Nature's Valley, and Nature's Valley, firstly, Nature's Valley is really beautiful. It's in the garden route as well. It is beautiful, the little village on its own, but there is a hostel called Wild Spirit, and I think I stayed for maybe 2 weeks there with a little break in between. And I went to a New Year's festival, because every New Year they have a 5-day festival, and it's really spiritual and chill, and with music and with meditation and yoga and sound healing and breath work, and very fairy and dancey, and everything was okay, and just an amazing time I had there. Oh, it was really good.
Yeah, when you
When I arrived there, I was like, do I want to... I knew there was a festival, but the festival was still 1.5 weeks away or something. So I stayed there for a couple of nights, and then I decided to take a little break further up the garden route. And then I went to Wilderness, and Wilderness I stayed at the Ferry No Hostel. I wouldn't recommend this one either. I really had a weird experience there as well, just the energy was not really feeling good. But Wilderness was pretty... What did I do there? Not so much, I think. For me, Wilderness was not it. But if you have a car, you can get around really good, and then it might be nicer. But as a backpacker, for me it was not really good. And then one guy that I met from Wild Spirit, he all of a sudden was there as well, without planning, and we got along really well. And he had a car, so then he went canoeing somewhere in the area. And then we decided to go back to Wild Spirit again. So we went to Wild Spirit back again by car, which it was nicer. Then I stayed there for the festival, and I also did a hike in Plettenberg Bay with a few guys that I met there as well. But that was just, we drove there, and then we did the Robberg hike, the longest one. It was amazing and super beautiful, and definitely recommend doing that hike. Then we went back to Wild Spirit for the festival, and after the festival I went to Cape Town with a few girls that I met there. There were girls in my dorm room during the festival, and they were from Cape Town, and they were like, oh yeah, we still have a spot free, so we can share gasoline and then you can drive with us. So when the festival was over, from Nature's Valley, I thought, like, you have a few places in the garden route. A few places I visited already, and then you Plettenberg Bay, but I went there for the hike, so I did see the city a little bit. And to Nisna, we made a little quick stop, and I think Walvis Bay as well. But with the girls, they needed to get a quick stop as well there to meet a friend. That was it. So I also went there. So with these girls, they took me to Cape Town, and it was actually really nice because they invited me over to meet their friends. So I really got to know a little bit of local people in Cape Town, and I went to like an art gallery with them, and we went to a wine tasting, and that was so nice. And we did a little barbecue at the end to say goodbye. I stayed in Cape Town for like a week. I firstly stayed at 91 Loop, and it is nice. It's not really a comfy and cozy atmosphere. It's more like business-y and very clean and white, which is not really my style, but I didn't think of that before, so I was like, okay, let's go there. And a very weird thing happened, because they have lockers with a key, so you need to put your key in front and your locker opens. And I put money in there, and I knew how much money I had because I was leaving South Africa, so I needed to get rid of my money. And I put it in there, I locked my locker, and then I went to sleep because I arrived pretty late and was tired. And then the next morning I opened my locker, and I was the only one with the key, and the key was just in my room, in my little pod. And then my money was gone, so that was such a weird thing. And they really tried to help me in the morning to see what happened, but also some history was deleted or something, so it was really a weird situation. And I was like, no, I want to leave now. I stayed one night, and I think the other 2 nights, I was planning on staying there for 3 nights, and the other 2 nights I got refunded. That was the least they could do, but they didn't give me my money back because, yeah, I could have lied as well. I wasn't lying, but there was no proof, so at least they gave me my refund. And then the girl that I met in Coffee Bay and Mdumbi, she also was in Cape Town, and she stayed at the Long Street Backpackers. So I was like, you know what, I will just go there. So we met up and we decided that we wanted to travel to Namibia together, but that will be the next video. But that's kind of how this whole road trip started. So I met a girl in Zanzibar, we decided to South Africa, go to South Africa together, and then I met a girl in South Africa and we decided to go to Namibia together. Okay, now a little bit of conclusion, and because I went through this pretty quick, and also stuff about public transport, tips, stops, this section. There are touring buses in South Africa, and I needed to take touring buses because there's also another option, the Bas bus, but because of the whole pandemic, what was happening back then, this one was not driving because there were not so many tourists. And the Bas bus turned out to be really expensive. I think like 300 or 400 euros, and then you can take it as much as you want and they drop you off from hostel to hostel. I don't know if it's driving right now. And it's a really good way of traveling through South Africa because they drop you off from hostel to hostel to hostel whenever you want. And I think it is really nice, but with public transport, if you take these big buses and the little local buses, the white buses, it is not so expensive, but it's more inconvenient. So you're stressing a lot about, okay, how to get there. And I think with the Bas bus, it can be really easy and really quick. So if you're only going through South Africa and you want to take public transport, look into the Bas bus, but also know it's not necessary. From big cities, big touring buses are driving, and you can go from big cities to big cities. So there are 2 options, but for me there was only one option, the touring buses. The safety in South Africa, for me it was fine. Of course, you need to look out for your belongings. Don't put your phone on the table, don't put your bag on the table, keep your bag close to you, don't wear very expensive jewelry, the normal necessary things. And my experience regarding safety was always really good, and when I arrived at a small bus station, people were really trying to help me because they saw, oh, this girl and it could be dangerous here, so let's help her. But yeah, for me it was fine. I felt safe, not really in Johannesburg all the time. So Johannesburg, you do need to be careful a little bit, but you can also be around your hostel. And South Africa, in comparison with the rest of Africa, is really, developed. I mean, I arrived there coming from Zanzibar and Tanzania mainland, and I was like, whoa, this is Europe. Exactly, this is Europe. Yeah, especially Cape Town as well. Wow, that's just a European city. It's crazy. I think South Africa is really a good way of going in Africa for a first time, and so you don't really get the big culture shock. And then I thought the Wild Coast was way more beautiful than the garden route. Because the Wild Coast is untouched still, and probably in the next 20 years, of course, the Wild Coast is not going to be untouched anymore, and they are trying to develop as well. But yeah, for me it was just more pure and more special. So if you have the time and you're going to South Africa for a while, really go to the Wild Coast, especially Coffee Bay, because from there they do a lot of trips, and then you still saw the Wild Coast, and then you can go to the garden route. And the touring buses in the garden route especially are really well connected. Only if you want to go to the Wild Coast, it can be a little bit more difficult. And then other recommendations are for sure Wild Spirit, check it out if it's something for you. Cape Town was also really cool to visit. Johannesburg, I think it was a cool experience to really challenge your mind of like before thinking, oh, it must be so difficult, and then coming there and it's actually, oh, it's super trendy and super cool and super hip, and yeah, to really change your mindset a little bit about a place. And Hazyview was also amazing, and the things that we've done there, and it was just beautiful. And also the Kruger Park, it was nice. Everything depends on how lucky you are with the animals that you're seeing, but with these 2 days we saw quite a lot of animals. And also just you have the Blyde River Canyon there, which was amazing, and you can go tubing and quad driving and really adventurous stuff over there. So that's also really what I recommend. If you're thinking about going to South Africa, do take the time. I think at least a month or 5 weeks. I think in 4 weeks you can easily do it as well, but especially if you want to go to the Wild Coast, take a little bit longer of time. I did meet one girl who did it almost all from Johannesburg to Cape Town in a month, even including the Wild Coast, but without going to Hazyview. And Hazyview is really a cool place. That was kind of my experience in South Africa, and I had an amazing time. Also the Workaway, what I did was really cool and so beautiful, and with horses and people, which is an amazing combination for me. So if you have any questions regarding South Africa or another country there, or how it works, or yeah, just drop it in the comments and I will answer it, because when I was looking for these stories I couldn't really find anything. So that's why I'm making this video, so other people who want to go there are not really sure how it works. So subscribe if you want to see the next videos of me going to Namibia. And I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.